a lot on how an area is maintained. The theory of sustainable development elaborates on the process of meeting human development goals while maintaining the ability of natural systems to continue providing for communities, for other generations as well. And finally, the Slums VBN theory, value belief norm, which suggests that bearing and perceiving adverse effects can help promote mitigation behavior, whether it is through biospheric values, whether it is through altruistic values. The Slums VBN theory postulates that all this can help have, or rather portray behaviors which can mitigate the decay of the environment. So my theory was built on these 4 theories, and I hope we can be able to appreciate these theories even as we go through. So as I said, the number of residents were 384. And from my objectives, the key variables were the socioeconomic characteristics of respondents. What was their age, their gender, were they married or not? How far were they in terms of education? What were their occupations, their level of income, religious indices? I also wanted to delve into the housing characteristics so that I could be able to appreciate the transformation from the housing characteristics. What kind of house were they in? What were the number of occupants? Were they renting? How much? What was the age? What were the materials of construction? What were the conditions of this drainage and waste environment, so that I could be able to appreciate environmental awareness and fire attributes of the area. So starting with the very first group of variables, the socioeconomics, I found that majority were female. Majority of the respondents were female, forming 57, and the male 42%, and most of the respondents there were, let us say, below 40. Years. Yeah, we can see the between 20 and 25, but generally most of the respondents were under 40. 76.3 reported to have been married, and other 19% were single. And most of them had gone up to secondary level. You can see 49.2%, which was reasonably higher than all the rest. So most had gone up to secondary level as well as primary level. On the occupation, we can see from this graph, majorly they engaged themselves either in trading. These ones occupied trading. .1, or also in a reasonable age were not free enough to, or rather comfortable enough to disclose their average monthly income. But then we can see that at least the most will make less than 20%, and very few, 3.1%, above 20,000. So that is on socioeconomic characteristics. On housing characteristics, I was looking at the type of previous house and the number of occupants among other indicators. So we can see from here that majority were living in single rooms. We can look at this, and in this most of them were living in in single room, that is 68%, and majority reported that they were living between 3 and 5, between 6 and 10, but also we had a minority 8.3, 1 and 2 occupants. So we can see that, we can already guess that, or rather we can already postulate that there were a number of people living in these single rooms. Also, we from here we can see another minority in bed sitters, 10.2%, others 12.8% that were living in one bedroom houses. So compared to the new housing, the relocation action plan project, also it was a one room, around 4.5 meters by 4 meters. So we can already try to imagine the scenario. Housing characteristics. So 75% reported to have been renting. Another 17%, they were the owners, and other 5% were living freely. Monthly rent, majority reported to be paying close to 2,500. Another, not a lot, but a reasonable percentage, were paying up to 5,000 Kenya shillings. Material used majorly was iron sheets. 25% lived in stone walled houses, and 12% in mud houses. And when I asked them concerning the view, how they liked their views concerning their previous state, majority reported that it was either not good or just fair, but also a 16.1 reported that it was good, and another minority reported that it was very good, of 4.7. So that was on housing. Remember the relocation action plan houses, as I have shown you before, they were just single rooms in comparison to this this data that I have already portrayed. And so these people who are living 3 to 5 or 6 to 10 would go to that single roomed RAP RAP project. And in the RAP projects, they were paying less than 1,000 Kenya shillings, but we can see here that the monthly rent that they were paying was close, let us say 5,000, because a minority 2.6 would pay between 5 and 10,000. So already we can appreciate that it would be cheaper for them in terms of the monthly rent that they would be paying to the KRC, the Kenya Railways Company. So we've seen the material is the same, is different. Initially, majority used to live in iron sheets, but then now they would be living in stone houses. And these are the views concerning their previous state. So now let us look at water as an abundant We can see majority used to get water either from the county council or from the local water vendors. It was very expensive from the local water vendors from whom they would buy at 4 times much more than just water from the county council. We can see that there was rationing. So in some parts, they would receive water once or twice, or in other places, 34.4% would receive water daily. But in the current, just comparing across, we can see this trend is almost similar. So we have from the county council, people would also, a lot would obtain water from there, as well as local water vendors. So because of rationing, they would also need to buy water from the local water vendors. But then there was also rationing. As we can see, some would receive water once or twice, depending on the location of the RAP, would be given us. So depending on the, you could say, get this water from. So I want us to take us through distance from the water sources. We can see this in blue is previous residence, and in red is current residence. We can see that between they would go between 0 and 50 meters to get water in the scenario where they don't have water. So the blue one is the previous residence and the red one is the current residence. They would go between 0 and 50 meters depending on the location of their house in the relocation action plan project. So between 50, some people would walk between 51 to 100 meters and so on and so forth to get water. Now, looking at this one is, the respondents, 31% of them say that for them it was just good. 31% of them, 21%, according to them, it was fair in terms of water supply in the area. Some very good, because in some of their previous residents, they would not be able to obtain water easily. So another urban environmental characteristic was the market conditions. This is the previous residents, and we have the current residents. How far will they go so that they could obtain their items from the shop, from the retail shops, from any outlet? So we can see in the previous residents, most of them would go at around about from 0 to 50 meters to get whatever they wanted. So in that setup, now the shops were together with the residents, and so it was just going outside and just finding whatever they wanted very easily. But then in the current residence, the place was fenced, so they would have to walk so that they could get some of these items. So these are just a representation of the same. In their previous setup, we can see most of them will say that the markets were fairly clean and hygienic. Another 31 would say that it was not clean and hygienic at all. But then the views really do not differ when you compare, because they were just going back to their previous markets that they were going to shop. So the market really, the big markets really did not change in terms of their location. So they were just going there. In terms of waste management, we can see that in the previous scenario, it was about open dumping and private collection. And in the new RAP project, it was the waste would be collected by private collectors who would come once in a week. In the other instance, sometimes they will not come at all or once in a week. So that there is a significant a difference, a positive one, because there will be better waste management. You can see that they, compared to their previous residences, they said that they appreciated. You can see 18% saying that it was very good, 44% saying that it was good. So another, I want us to get into drainage. This was how the previous drainage looked like. Open dumping, open sewers, and most of them would share toilet facilities. And the minority, 16% would have their own toilets. So there are several characteristics that I was looking at. We can see there is improvement here in the new RAP project, with sewer lines being fitted, and this of course will postulate even better health, as we are going to see ahead. Yep. So I would want us to look at the fourth attribute on health, energy, security, environmental awareness, and fire attributes. And here we can see that in the new RAP area, a large percentage witnessed that they had not witnessed any disease outbreak compared to the previous 55% that had witnessed disease outbreaks. So it's a combination of very many factors: better drainage systems, a better environmental situations, which one would link with. In terms of the accessibility to their nearby health facilities, again, in the previous situation, it was okay. It was good and fair majority, which was also the same in the current RAP area. Now, in terms of energy, we can see that initially they were using charcoal, a lot of charcoal, and LPG, as well as stove. But then we can see here that there is a shift. Charcoal has reduced, LPG has increased, and also stove. Yeah, and we can see that there is a shift towards even cleaner sources of energy. And mainly because now in the current RAP, they could in the previous scenario in the slums, even fire breakouts will be rampant because of the use of stove, because of the overcrowding situation there. And so far, even fire breakouts would be much more. But here, even with this kind of energy, they had not witnessed even any single fire outbreak. In terms of security, majority reported that at the moment, the place was secure, or fairly secure, or very, very secure. Yeah, so this in terms of fire attributes. In the current RAP, they had not witnessed any fire scenarios. Now, on recreational facilities, we can see that most in the previous and in the current home in RAP, they would be able to access library and sport facilities, but then open spaces had turned into dump sites, dumping places, and precarious places which were unsecure. And perhaps that is somewhere where urban planners can work on to improve the open spaces in such places, because even the poor person, even the underprivileged person, has a right to enjoy their environment, has a right to participate in recreational activities in their vicinaries. On environmental awareness, respondents on board situations would be sensitized on environmental issues. But then here in RAP, in their current area, they would be much more, they would get the sensitization even much more from the community heads, from posters as well. Yes. So to sum up all these characteristics that I have been talking about, urban environmental characteristics, the type of building materials, it was a success because majority had reported that they were living in iron sheets, in mud houses, a few minority in stone houses. Stone houses were better. In their previous situation, because the stone is even fire resistant, they have not witnessed a single case of fire breakout. But in their previous, because of the overcrowdedness as well as harsh weather conditions, fire would explode, and every other time there are cases of fire. In terms of waste management, it was much better. Now they had a toilet facility for their own, each family in their house. There were no disease outbreak. There were reduced disease outbreaks, and they were also able to get environmental sensitization. Perhaps for improvement would be access to water, distances to be covered, or other access to other amenities. Market conditions could improve. Also preservation efforts, creating open spaces in this area could be factored in planning exercises. In conclusion, and in view of tomorrow's cities, it is important that there is development of climate resilience plans. It is important that an inclusive culture is created in our cities so that the women who are also the majority in these places can be involved in building, in designing, in shaping our future cities. There needs to be increased investment and financing so that poor adaptation projects can be even much more, so that the economic livelihoods can be increased. So these conclusions are in view of just these urban environmental characteristics that I have been talking about in this. So now what I'm on in view of tomorrow's cities is a digest, because it needs a concerted effort by different actors, by policymakers, as well by government, so that we can be able to realize this. For sure, is not exclusive but then it is intended to invite and challenge the global community of urban researchers to respond to the expanding research agenda on the global south cities, on the informal settlements, to be specific, so that we can be able to realize these tomorrow's cities. We need to adopt inclusionary planning regulations so that the gap between the rich and the poor can be reduced. So this inclusionary planning, incorporating the views of the poor, of the underprivileged living in these areas. So I'm just thinking that if these people, they are 6 to 9 in an apartment, perhaps parents and children, or adults living, and then they are working, going to town every morning to find work. I'm thinking that perhaps we will not be solving the real issue. Perhaps tomorrow, now the RAP project, for example, would be the new poor. The residents here would be the new poor at that point in time, because perhaps it would have been better if their views would have been taken into consideration, perhaps setting up applicable, workable houses. Because again, if we stress that in the RAP infrastructure, then decay would continue to be persistent. Another thing that we need to do as urban stakeholders, we need to improve access to amenities, to services, provide adequate and cheaper housing so that they are affordable enough for them. We need to ensure adequate provision for electricity, for water, sanitation, drainage, and waste management. There needs to be provision of employment opportunities so that serve to reduce, so as to reduce environmental impact. This could be achieved through nature-based solutions, green growth strategies, zero circular economies, also by promotion of urban agriculture endeavors, adopting flexible building codes, inclusion of open spaces, adopting proper statutory laws that can favor the inclusion of the poor, as well as increased partnerships among urban planning authorities in cooperation with other city corporations towards building the resilience of the urban poor. I think it is possible. It is possible, as we have seen from the results of the study. It is possible to achieve all this, but it needs concerted efforts from all stakeholders, so that all the aspects that come into play of water, of sanitation, of health, fire attributes, they can be considered. Thank you very much for listening. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Daisy. I hope I'm audible enough. That was,
yeah.
All right, thank you. That was power-packed, you know, lots and lots of things to ponder on from your presentation. But before I open the Q&A session and also just read some of the comments we have on the chat, one participant reached out to me and they want to see your face because all through you haven't turned on your video. So I just wanted to check with you if possible, you could just, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so that's Daisy. And once again, thank you for the presentation. And, I was just thinking about, taking us back to COP27 and, some of the agreements that were made during that time. And one of them was that the governments of the most polluting cities are still not willing to commit to contributing their fair share of halving global emissions by 2030, or rather just meeting the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. So I think this really calls for the urgent need for cities and other non-state actors to lead immediately with science-based climate action, to improve on that. And cities cannot do it alone, to be honest. We need to, there's a lot of factors that interplay, but I really believe that cities take the front seat in such discussions, because everywhere globally, not just in Africa, they are the biggest polluters. And so we need to really, really invest in urban climate actions, to halve emissions. And most importantly for Africa, this is very necessary when we think about improving the livelihoods of the urban poor, when you talk about their health issues, because a lot of these things are intertwined around urban climate action. So I really just want to say thank you, Daisy, for bringing this up. And I know there are reactions, of course, from our participants. And also we had a number of comments. I'm just going to quickly check on that. All right, so. So I'll go right up from Jim Odwar, who was just saying that he's tuned in from Nairobi and he's very passionate about how to make our cities sustainable, especially the African cities. So Jim, I'm not sure, but I really do hope that this study provided some insights on the way forward, and really Daisy has given us a picture of what tomorrow's cities need to look like. So then what kind of actions can we take at a personal level? And I also see Engineer Bernard Makar, who is based in Nairobi and is an electrical engineer and consultant who is very passionate about stations and smart cities. Peter, was Daisy, in your investigations, it seems that you have left out people with disabilities. Does this have less impact on your study findings? Very, very critical question there by Mr. Peter Waswa. So I think, Daisy, at this stage, I would like to open the question in the Q&A. And of course, the first question is from Mr. Waswa. So would you like to respond to that? As I also see Benjamin Shoka of the ARIN team has another question from you, but I'm just going to start with the question from Mr. Waswa. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. So an analysis of the kind of the building, the architectural bit of the relocation action plan project. It was a 3-story house, and there were no ramps, but then it was provided for with that information I got from the key informant interviews from the from the Kenya Railway Corporation, and persons with disabilities were given the priority to occupy the ground floor houses. But then, every other person would occupy either the ground floor as well as the 2 stories above. Thank you so much for bringing that question view.
Thank you, Daisy, for highlighting that. So I would like to welcome Mr. Benjamin Shoka from our side. And since I'm also very passionate about cities, I do have a question from you,
Yes.
for you. But yes, Benjamin, Karibu.
Thank you so much, Daisy, for that comprehensive presentation. And my question is, while carrying out this study, what are some of the limitations that you came across? Or are there any challenges that you experienced when you're doing this study in these areas? And another question is, what are the specific area or the criteria that you used to pick this area? For instance, you mentioned Soweto and Kianda. What made you choose Soweto, Kianda, and not other areas as well?
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. I want to respond. Let me respond with the last question first. I chose these areas. I actually chose all the areas that were complete. So these 4 areas, I chose them because they were complete as compared to other areas which were still under construction, but these areas had actually been, all of them had been occupied by residents inside them. The second question you asked about the challenges that I experienced. I could want to say that I had enough support from the Kenya Railways Corporation that had actually implemented that project, but it was a little bit difficult to always come up with group discussions. But I also got assistance from some of researchers who are there, who would connect with the persons there, like the wazee wa vijiji would come in to assist bringing people together, because now when you are asking very sensitive questions like how much do you earn, you've seen also from my presentation that some were not willing to open up and say that this is what I am earning, or yes. So I think those were some of the challenges, but again, that would have made my data not rich in terms of analyzing the type of income, but I was able to gather much data also from them that just responded in compared to them that were not very comfortable in terms of giving response on those questions.
Thank you so much, Daisy. Maybe, because I don't see any other questions in the chat, just 2 quick ones. So first, there's this project in Kibera that is ongoing. And for our international participants, Kibera is one of the largest slums here in Kenya. And there was a project to upgrade the slums in terms of housing. But then I realized that there was a lot of corruption issues with this housing project, where we find cartels now taking up those houses and charging more than they ought to have been charged. And also the people who really deserve to stay in those houses don't actually get the chance to occupy those houses. So were you able to also identify that with your study, and also what do you think can be done to kind of manage that situation? Another thing is the aspect of green jobs, which is gaining a lot of momentum in the recent discourse or dialogues, talking about jobs that really help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, protect nature, and also generally improve the well-being of urban dwellers. In this case, with respect to your study, improve the well-being of slum dwellers. I did not see an aspect of that. Probably it did come out clearly, but also what do you think is the potential in jobs and picking up this concept for Africa?
Thank you so much, Juliet. Allow me to address the previous question first. I want to say that the KRC has a legal section. It has a legal department which was involved in issuing out the persons who would be given, it would be issued a house, would be relocated from that previous home to this new home. So I just worked with the people who are actually therein. I think it is a broad topic. I think there is a lot of political factors which can play in this scenario, and how I wish that there can be also incorporation of just and fairness, so that the people who actually get the houses, they are the real owners. But then I just worked with the people which already that were there, and more about whether they were the real owners or not. I am not in a position really to determine. I would rather leave that for the court adjunctures and the like. Yeah, on green growth projects, I could just want to mention that the 3 R's: recycling, reusing, those could be potential projects that people in the slums can work on. How can they recycle the waste there? We have seen examples of this green growth project. We have seen bio toilets working there. We have seen in our slums, we have seen people developing building materials. We have seen briquettes, which are an alternative energy source for cooking. We have seen jikokoa. In Kenya, we have jikokoa. It's a new form of jiko, a new form of cooking, an alternative of charcoal, which would oversee cutting down trees. Then with the jikokoa would conserve energy. So the meko the use of charcoal would be reduced if people use jikokoa, because it would entail using lesser charcoal. It would entail also being used for longer times. That would really go a long way to conserve energy. Yeah, I think those are just some of the examples. Plastics, they can be used for art, creating artifacts. Slums can be places for ecotourism, just to mention a few.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so there's a question from Mr. Kirimi Kisa Crispus. He says, great presentation and apologies for being late. It's totally okay. Mine is probably a question in the larger scheme of things to get an opinion from you and everyone here today, if possible. There's always been a discussion that as a way of building cities of the future and ensuring we cater to the issue of housing and green cities, probably differentiating administrative cities and administration cities is important. Wow, thank you. I'm also really looking forward to hear the insights that we have regarding Mr. Kirimi's questions. So, yeah, or other business cities. It's open to the floor. Anyone can respond, but I want to put Daisy on the spotlight just to give others a chance to also think about it. So Daisy, please.
Yeah, so as I was saying, some questions come into our minds when we are looking at such a topic as this, and I'm just asking, and I could want to ask ourselves, how can urbanization in the global south be better planned and managed to speed up the eradication of poverty and reduce inequality? And is this inclusive city really possible? Is it really possible in our case, in the global south? I could want to hear something of the sort from you, of the same sort from you, but then something which is also intriguing is that I am compelled to agree with the fact that the framing of urban sustainability in our region, now in the global south, is often modeled on the urban experiences from the global north, despite the fundamental differences in terms of basic services, resources, and the like. Cities in the global south suffer from problems of inequality, poverty, infrastructural deficit, and so these cities may struggle with the sustainability issues. So I think the very best approach for us as urban planners, urban experts, sustainability experts, would be to consider how these conditions might give rise to novel pathways to urban sustainability. How, based on what affects us, how can we come up with novel pathways? I think that will be a distinctive feature, an excellent feature of mapping the road towards sustainability. Thank you. I could want to open the floor for any addition on that.
Thank you so much, Dave. I see already comment from Mr. Waswa, and it says better urbanization is possible if housing units and land belongs to government and the government plan for housing, like in Europe. Oh, so Peter, I'm not sure if you're able to speak. I would really love to hear from you what's happening in Europe and what Africa can borrow with regards to your comment. Just give me a signal if you're able to speak. If not, that's totally okay. But I'll just wait for a couple of minutes to see that. Okay, you're in the library. It sounds, that's okay. Yeah, so I don't think we have any more comments. And with regards to Mr. Kirimi's question, please feel free to reach out to me if you think about anything, and I'll be happy to share that with the rest of the participants. And now, in the interest of time, may I please apologize? We might need to use 3 minutes of your time just to get comments from our research manager, Madam Victoria, who has also done tremendous research around areas of sustainable cities under our Tomorrow Cities project, who will also be closing today's session on behalf of our executive director and the entire RM fraternity. So kindly bear with us for the next 2 minutes. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you a lot, Janet, for taking us through the session. Thank you, Daisy, for your presentation. I think that was very comprehensive, I must say. And also, having listened to you in a previous session, I think talking about a similar area, and given your expertise on urban planning, urban areas of these spaces and the likes. And I must say that this is a very pertinent, especially for you in Kenya, discussion debates. Affordable housing for the poor, with the need, the cost of living. And I believe, as we try to look at some of these areas, and I think these have been spoken in other forums, the need to have a policy kind of link with research, because it is until we look at very closely at some of these areas. Okay. You seem to not hear well. Does it seem to be coming from? Someone else can I have a problem. Can someone can hear me? Sure, it's a connection. It's not easy. We're going to press.
Okay.
Okay.
Just a moment. Okay, I believe you can hear me better now. Please just type on the chat. Okay, great. Thanks, Peter. Yeah, sorry about that. I was talking about, you know, the connection and the linkage of, you know, just having to look closely at the issues around urbanization. What do tomorrow's cities really? How do we aspire tomorrow's cities to be like? And I think we cannot look at tomorrow's cities without thinking about the issues that are affecting the urban poor. Of course, we try looking at the urban poor because I think that's where I think you will get, you know, a feel of the issues that you need to address. And looking at specifically the water issues, the issues around sanitation, the issues around even the affordability of this housing. The materials, you have to look whole-roundedly, the materials that these houses are made of. And after you look even after the type of housing, the conditions that surround these people who live in this in dignified, you know, conditions, how do you want to enable, you know, a better condition in the future? So having to project that, we have to kind of really link the policy side of this, and we have to interrogate very closely. And, you know, Daisy's study is one of the, I think, baselines and the conversations that need to happen a lot more with all the stakeholders and with all the people, and more specifically policymakers who work around this space. Because of course, without policies, it is usually very difficult to kind of implement things. And I'm hoping that in other cities, I think that it would be really good that, you know, in the African setup, because this is where we face a lot of this urbanization issues and poor housing and living conditions that are not really good for humans to live in. So unless we look very closely at this, unless we have policymakers come on the ground and kind of start working on this as we move along. And of course, we have cross-cutting issues that have to surround this. It's not just about affordability or any other thing. We have to also look at climate change and related issues that are not, that are, you know, are very unpredictable. And we have to look at what does climate change come with? What does it bring along in terms of, and the issues that come and link and affect these people living in the urban areas. We have to look at some of the things, the flooding issues. So this has to be connected with the planning of the city. You have to look at, I think, the connectivity issues on the video. Okay, great. We have to look at the issues that have to do with how do we also, at the same time as we want to deal with the issues that are man-made, things that are socially driven, we have to look at the issues that, you know, are very unpredictable. And we have to do this jointly with all the stakeholders on board. And I'm really happy that we are having this conversation. I think I would really want to hear a lot more from maybe other people. Great, yeah, urban heat on islands. That's a very critical area. There are very many cities in the African continent that are, you know, based on islands, and also, you know, across coastal areas as well. So I'm glad we are talking about this today, and I'm hoping that of course time does not allow for us to kind of hear case studies from other places. And we've had in a previous session one of our researchers who's tried to look at some work we've done on tomorrow's cities as well. So this is a kind of continuation on that debate, and we're going to continue to have a lot more on that. So really, without taking too much of your time, just to thank you for your participation. Thank you, Daisy, for looking and working so hard to put this together to share with us, just to, you know, provoke our minds in a very interesting way. And let's keep conversing, let's keep sharing. If you're working around this similar topic as well, please do share with us what you're working on, and maybe probably, if it has inspired you probably to think of a line of your research, that would also be really great. So let me take it back to you, Juliet, because I think I could have much to say, because I think I've worked in this space for a few years now. but just because of time, let's keep conversing and spreading the word on the views, and also trying to engage much closer on similar topics. So thank you. All right, thank you so much, Madam Victoria. I don't want to talk a lot after what you have said. I believe that was very, very impactful, and a good way to close and to think about the bigger picture. So as our norm, and I already see Mr. Waswa is ready for the virtual selfie. I would like to call us to turn on our cameras for the virtual selfie session. Our media already on standby to capture your voice. So please, and sorry, dropped off from our main sensing camera, but from our side, we see you. Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a long time. So you're good to see Dr. Joseph. I can see Onyekachi turning in his camera. So I want to give a few minutes to him. I can also see from the ARIN team. And so let's have 10 more seconds to see who is turning on their cameras. Good to see you, Noafor. All right, so at the count of 3, as we always do it, I'm gonna call us to smile, and be sure to follow us on Twitter to also smile was well captured. If not, you could reach out to me so time we wait. But anyway, let's all put on our smiles. 1, 2, and 3. Brian, are we good? Awesome. So on behalf of the Africa Network Fraternity, our speaker of the day, thank you so much for making time to your presentation. To our esteemed participants, it is always an honor to have you here every Friday. We know it's not in vain. Like we say, in Afro-Africa, and it starts with you. So please don't attending. They are very, especially for those of the field of science. We constantly the state science for Africa, and how can we improve on this at individual? So we always create time to have every Friday, 3 African time. We do appreciate it. And to our interpreter, Dr. Josh, we can never for making both our Francophone team. Thank you. And we are a Christian-based organization, so allow me to for the work that you do every Friday. So without ado, I would like to declare the review session ended and see you again in the same place. Thank you. Blessed and restful weekend.